I keep making videos about that one guy who thinks he's better than everybody else and probably is, who cannot stand the nonsense that he has to deal with in college, who completely does not respect his teachers, and he just wants to start a business. Now, I personally do not recommend starting a business, but if you do, because I know that me telling you not to start a business is only going to motivate you more to start the business. And I was that way too. Everybody told me don't start a startup in college. I still started a startup in college. And if you are planning to start a startup in college, which I highly do not recommend, there are some frameworks, there are some guidelines that you need to follow. I've dealt with almost all the college startup e-cells in Bombay. I've talked to a lot of the college entrepreneur guys. I've talked to some very famous entrepreneurs who started straight out of college, and they've all done the same things. In this video, I'm going to tell you what you might be doing wrong and what will cause you a lot of problems in the long term if you do right now. Number one, do not start an agency, and definitely do not do freelancing. The problem with an agency and the problem with freelancing is that you're building nothing. Nothing is compounding over time except for your freelancing portfolio, which is not something that compounds anyways. What happens is, the easiest way to quickly start earning money in college, or like start making 20,000-30,000 rupees in college, is to start freelancing. It can be freelance web development, it can be freelance graphic design, it can be freelance digital marketing. The problem with this is that great, right now you're making good amounts of money compared to your classmates, and within 6 months you can afford a MacBook, and you might be looking cool in front of your classmates. You can buy the 10,000 rupee sunglasses. But what happens after this is that you hit a plateau very fast. And most freelancers know this. And that's why a lot of freelancers who've been doing it for like 5 or 6 years are crazily frustrated. So it will save you a lot of frustration. It will save you a lot of mental stress to just not do freelance. It's a terrible career opportunity, especially agencies. Now I know you're going to show me some agency who has made $1 billion. You're going to show me this agency that does graphic design and whatever. Look at all the agencies. Look at the average agency. Where does it end up? And having the mindset that, oh, I want to be the number one agency is great. But you have to understand that the number one agency didn't become the number one agency because of hard work. The number one agency didn't become the number one agency because of quality of output. The number one agency became the number one agency because of luck and being in the right place at the right time. These are things that you do not control. Number two, do not sell your time. Second easiest way to make money is by selling your time. This can be things like being an assistant or helping someone do something, or basically being like someone whose time is being paid for. Problem with this is you will very soon hit a cap of how much time you have in a day. It's very difficult to work more than 15 hours in a day, and if you have an hourly rate that is not going to justify the amount of effort you put in, it's going to be an utter waste of time, especially in a country like India where hourly rates are extremely low. If you want to, try to make some money in college, even if it's a side hustle, even if it's a main hustle or a main startup that you're starting, you have to do something that has a huge leverage in terms of time. The amount of time you put in should be completely unrelated to the amount of money you make. It has to be something where you put like 15 minutes and you have potential to make like 1 crore rupees. Now I know this sounds crazy. This sounds like it cannot be done, but a lot of people are doing this. And you just need to find the right opportunity vehicle. You just need to find the right path that can kind of take you in that direction without capitalizing on your time. And no, I'm not saying that you should not work hard. Everybody needs to work hard. Everybody works hard already. If you're not working hard, you're already behind. But if you do something that does not have leverage in terms of time, if you do something that basically caps out when your hours in the day are done, you might make some money now, but 5 years from now, you're going to be behind everyone else. Number three, don't try to fundraise. A lot of the clowns from college watch Shark Tank or read some news on the internet about how some college dropout fundraised and started $1 billion company or a $10 million company. It's bullshit. A lot of these guys who did it straight out of college have a lot of backing from their parents. It's very common that a college dropout founder will say, hey, I raised $1 million, and that $1 million is just coming from his dad. And this is what people don't talk about. People think that, oh, this guy's a genius because he raised $2 million. What actually happened is it's his dad running the startup in his son's name, and his dad is putting his own money into it. Number three, be very careful of what you sign. I used to have a startup in college that failed. And when I announced publicly that I'm quitting it, some very large number of people started messaging me saying, hey, why don't we acquire your startup? Now in my head, I know that I have not built anything proprietary. In my head, I know that there's nothing to acquire. So what are these guys actually doing? And they're offering me like crores of rupees to acquire my startup. What do they want from me? Do they want my pitch deck? Do they want some graphics that I got an intern to design? I don't get it. And soon I realized that they wanted me. They were trying to buy me. They would essentially make me the guy who works for them for the rest of my life because I've obligated because of a contract. And this is way more common than you can imagine. It is much better to tell your friends that you failed the startup than to tell your friends that your startup got acquired. And my friend made this mistake just a few days ago, that he really didn't want to tell everyone that his startup failed. So he found someone to acquire it, which is extremely easy because everybody is willing to acquire startups because it's like both people win, right? The person who's acquiring the startup gets to say, see, I acquired a startup, so I'm so great. And the person who sold a startup saying, see, I sold my startup, so I'm so great. And they will never disclose the amount. So it's like probably a 10 rupee acquisition. And both people get social media clout for this. And the problem with this, and the problem with signing these documents, is that you're selling your soul. You're never going to be free for the rest of your life. And this is extremely common in the VC space. This is something that nobody talks about. Number 3 is be ready to quit. You have to drop your startup as soon as possible. I know a guy who was from my college who's been running the same startup for probably 3 or 4 years now. And the startup right now makes like 1 lakh rupees a month in revenue. And the 3 co-founders are probably making like 10,000 rupees each in revenue. They are living broke, they're living off their parents. It just does not make sense to me. If your startup fails, it's completely okay. Nobody's holding a gun to your head and saying you have to be successful. Just start a new startup. But do not hold the grudge of the past. When I left my startup, it was an extremely stressful moment for me. I colored my hair pink and green, not kidding, you can see those photos. I completely lost my sanity, started eating large amounts of food and drinking alcohol, etc., which now I no longer do. But it's extremely difficult for someone to give up their baby. And you need to just have the mental peace and the confidence that, even if I give this up, people will make fun of me. And people make fun of me a lot for failing my last startup. But you know what? 6 months later, everybody's forgotten. And even if they actually remember this for 6 months, they're not the type of people you care about. Next one is take moonshot risk. If you're in college, you have insane risk capability. You know what will happen if you take a risk and you don't make any money? Nothing. Think of it this way. A small business and a big business take the same amount of effort to run. Then why would anybody start a small business? I see people doing stupid things like selling chocolates. I see people doing stupid things like making art and trying to sell that. Why? You're not going to make any money doing that. The amount of effort that you take selling chocolates is the same as the amount of effort that you'll take to try to build $1 billion company. So why would you try to sell chocolates? Don't make that mistake of starting a small business. If you're starting something in college, take moonshot risk. It's the only way to do it. You have to have an opportunity vehicle that has the potential to make you a millionaire within like a few years. And lastly, the most important thing and the biggest mistake I made in my startup is don't spend before you earn. In my startup, I started hiring teams. I started hiring probably 30 interns. I started running a full office. I registered my company before I had made a single dollar in revenue. Why? It's probably the dumbest thing for you to do, to register a company. And I don't know why Indian college students think it's a flex to have a registered company. Right now, I have a Dubai registered company and I have a registered company in a few other countries that all have made me $0. It's a failure. It's not a flex that I have a company registered in a country. You can just buy a company in almost any country of the world. And a lot of Indian students will try to get legal, try to get an accountant. Why? Just to feed your own ego? So anyone you hire or any decision you make has to have just 2 principles. Either it makes you more money or it saves your time. And setting up a company is going to do neither. So anyways, if you are the type of person, if you are that one guy who I completely empathize with, if you're that guy who really wants to start up, we should definitely be connected. So not just I want you to comment on YouTube, I also want you to connect with me on different social medias, because I would like to actually one-on-one talk to you. I've done an insane amount of hiring. I've got an insane amount of people funded through my networks based on people who have just DM'd me on the internet. And who knows, something might just work out somewhere.